Readings of Almighty God's Words. Exposing Antichrists.
Item 7. They are wicked, insidious, and deceitful. Part 1. What is the primary manifestation of an Antichrist's wickedness? It is that they know clearly what is right and what accords with the truth. But when it comes to them doing something, they will only ever choose that which violates principles and goes against the truth, and that which satisfies their own interests and position. This is the primary manifestation of an Antichrist's wicked disposition. No matter how many words and doctrines they understand, how pleasant-sounding the language they use in sermons, or how much they seem to other people to have spiritual understanding, when they do things, they only choose one principle and one method, and that is to go against the truth, to protect their own interests, and to resist the truth till the end, 100%. This is the principle and method they choose to act by. Besides this, what exactly are the God and the truth they imagine in their hearts? Their attitude toward the truth is merely one of wanting to be able to speak and preach about it, and not wanting to put it into practice. They just talk about it, wanting to be held in high esteem by God's chosen people, and then to use this to seize the position of church leader, and achieve their aim of gaining mastery over God's chosen people. They use preaching doctrine to achieve their aims. Is this not them showing contempt for the truth, playing with the truth, and trampling on the truth? Do they not offend God's disposition by treating the truth in this way? They just use the truth. In their hearts, the truth is a slogan, some lofty words which they can use to mislead people and win them over, that can satisfy people's thirst for wonderful things. They think that there is no one in this world who can practice the truth or live out the truth, that this just doesn't work, that it is impossible, and that only that which everyone acknowledges and is workable is the truth. Even though they talk about the truth, in their hearts they don't acknowledge that it is the truth. How do we test this matter?
They don't practice the truth.
They never practice the truth. This is one aspect. And what is another important aspect? When they encounter things in real life, the doctrine they understand is never workable. They appear as though they really have spiritual understanding. They preach doctrine after doctrine, but when they encounter issues, their methods are distorted. Even though they aren't able to practice the truth, what they do must at least be in line with human notions and imaginings, in line with human standards and tastes, and must at least pass muster with others. In this way, their position will be kept stable. In real life, however, the things they do are incredibly distorted, and one glance is enough to tell that they don't understand the truth. Why don't they understand the truth? In their hearts, they're averse to the truth. They don't acknowledge the truth. They enjoy doing things according to satanic philosophies. They always want to handle matters using human ways. And if they can convince others and gain prestige by their handling of these matters, then that is enough for them. If an Antichrist hears someone preaching empty theory when they go to a venue, they get so excited. But if someone is there preaching truth reality and going into such detail as people's various states, they always feel that the speaker is criticizing them and jabbing at their heart. And so, they feel repulsed and don't want to hear it. If they're asked to fellowship on how their state has been recently, whether they've made any progress, and whether they have encountered any difficulties in performing their duty, they have nothing to say. If you continue to fellowship on this aspect of the truth, they fall asleep. They don't enjoy hearing about it. There are also some people who lean forward when you engage in chit-chat with them. But the moment they hear someone fellowshipping on the truth, they go hide in the corner and have a snooze. They have no love for the truth whatsoever. To what extent do they have no love for the truth? On the mild side, they aren't interested in it, and it's enough for them to be laborers. On the serious side, they're averse to the truth. They feel particularly repulsed by the truth, and they can't accept it. If this kind of person is a leader, then they are an Antichrist. If they are an ordinary follower, then they are still walking the path of Antichrists, and they are the successors of Antichrists. From the outside, they appear intelligent and gifted, with some good potential, but their nature essence is that of an Antichrist. This is how it is. What are these judgments based on? They're all based on these people's attitude toward the truth and their attitude toward positive things. This is the aspect regarding people's approach to the truth. The other aspect is that, a lot of the time, people don't directly face the truth. Some things don't involve the truth. People can't think of what aspect of the truth is involved. And so, who is it that people face directly? The one they face directly is God. And how do these people treat God? In which manifestations do they show their wicked dispositions? Do they engage in true prayer and true communion with God? Do they have an honest attitude? Do they have true faith? Do they truly rely on God and truly entrust themselves to God? Do they truly fear God? These are all practical matters and are absolutely not empty pleasantries or cliches. If you don't get that these words are practical, then you have no spiritual understanding. Let me give you an example of the manifestations of people like this. Some people clench their fists and swear oaths at gatherings, saying, "I'm not going to get married for as long as I live. I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to give up everything and follow God till the end." When they're done hollering and are about to expend themselves for God, they ponder, "How can I get more blessings from God? I have to do something for God to see." However, they hear God saying He doesn't love people like them, and they think, "Now what am I going to do? I'll distance myself from God so that God can't see me." What kind of state is this? They shun God in order to guard against Him. And what disposition lies inside their guardedness? Wickedness. They always guard themselves against God when they do things. They're afraid that God will see through them, and they don't accept God's scrutiny. Is this belief in God? Isn't this them resisting God? This is such a negative state. It is not normal. Although they can still go along with eating and drinking God's words, the moment they hear God speaking words to judge and expose people, they run away, or else they hurriedly throw up a pretense and find some way as a compromise to enshroud themselves. They try hard to conceal themselves and do everything possible to be evasive and guarded, while at the same time constantly fighting against God in their heart. They don't seek God's intentions, nor do they seek the truth in the things they do. Instead, they want to show even more that they can accept the truth and submit to God without complaint, trying to win everyone's approval through pretense and falsity. As for what God says, what He requires of such people, and how He evaluates and defines such people, they don't care about such things and they don't want to know. They aren't really clear in their hearts on exactly who God is, but instead all is imagination and judgment. When God does something that is at odds with their notions, they condemn it in their hearts. Although they say they believe in God, their hearts are filled with doubt. This is people's wicked disposition. Some antichrists often try to test God. They take a step forward, scope the situation out, and then take another step. In simple terms, they can be said to have a wait-and-see attitude. What does wait and see mean? Let me give you an example. For instance, someone quits their job and then they pray before God saying, "Oh God, I have no job anymore. I hope that you will support me in the future. I entrust everything into your hands. I devote my life to you." When they're done praying, they wait to see whether God blesses them with anything, whether He gives them any supernatural revelation or greater grace, whether they at least get more and have better enjoyment than they did when working their job in the world. This is them testing God. What is this prayer and this dedication?
It's a transaction.
Is there not a wicked disposition within this transaction? Their approach is to get the ball rolling by offering a modest inducement in order to attract a more valuable contribution, asking for grace and blessings from God. This is their aim. Someone says, "The situation in China is so terrible. The situation with the great red dragon arresting people is getting worse and worse. It's dangerous even for two people to gather together. Dangerous even for a family of 4 to gather together. It's so dangerous to believe in God in this situation in China. If something really were to go wrong, would we still be saved? Would we not believe in vain?" They get to thinking, "I have to think of a way to leave the country. When the situation was good before, I coveted ease and comfort and didn't want to leave China. It was so good to get together with my family, and I could also believe in God and receive blessings. It was a win-win situation. Now things are bad. The disasters have come, and I must hurry and leave China. I can still do my duty once I've left the country, and by doing my duty, I'll have the chance to gain blessings." In the end, they flee the country. What is this? This is opportunism. everyone can be calculating, and everyone has a transactional mentality. Isn't this wicked? Are there people like this among you? In their hearts, they say, "If I get bullied in the world, then my parents and family can protect me. If I get arrested for my belief in God, will God keep me safe?" Seems as though that's difficult to know for sure. So, what should I do if I can't know that for sure? My parents certainly won't be able to protect me. When someone is arrested for their belief in God, ordinary people can't rescue them. And if I can't stand the cruel tortures and torments at the hands of the great red dragon, and I become a Judas, won't my little life be ruined? I'd best leave the country and go believe in God abroad. Is there anyone who thinks like this? There must be, right? So, is there anyone who says, "You vilify us and we haven't thought that way"? People like this are definitely not in the minority, and in time you will see and understand. What are the main features of Antichrist's wickedness? The first is that they don't acknowledge positive things. They don't acknowledge that there is such a thing as truth, and they think that their heretical fallacies and their wicked negative things are the truth. This is one manifestation of the wickedness of Antichrists. For example, some people say, "One's own happiness is in one's own hands, and only with power can one have everything." This is the logic of Antichrists. They believe that with power come people who fawn and flatter them, people who give gifts and toady up to them, as well as all manner of benefits of status and all manner of enjoyment. They believe they no longer have to be pushed around by anyone or led by anyone, and that they can lead others. This is their top priority. What do you think of their calculating like this? Isn't it wicked? Antichrists use their satanic logic and heretical fallacies in place of truth. This is one aspect of their wickedness. First of all, they don't acknowledge the truth. They don't acknowledge that there are positive things, and they don't acknowledge the rightness of positive things. Moreover, even though some people do acknowledge that there are positive things and negative things in this world, how do they approach positive things and the existence of truth? They still don't love it. The life they choose and the path they walk in their belief in God remain negative and are at odds with the truth. They safeguard only their own interests. Whether a positive thing or negative thing, as long as it can safeguard their own interests, then it is all right. It is supreme. Isn't this a wicked disposition? There is another aspect. People like this who possess a wicked essence are inherently contemptuous of God's humility and hiddenness, God's faithfulness and goodness. They are inherently contemptuous of these positive things. For instance, look at me. Am I not very ordinary? I'm ordinary. Why don't you dare say it? I, myself, acknowledge that I'm ordinary. I've never thought of myself as being extraordinary or great. I'm just an ordinary person. I've always acknowledged this fact, and I dare to face this fact. I don't want to be a superwoman or some great person. how exhausting that would be. Some people look down on this ordinary person that I am and always harbor notions about me. When those who truly believe in God come before me, they still come with some piety, regardless of what I look like on the outside. Then there are some who, despite talking to me all very politely, harbor a contemptuous attitude toward me in their hearts, and I can tell this from their tone and from the way they move their bodies. Even though sometimes they appear very respectful, whatever I say to them, they always reply with a no, always negating what I say. For example, I say the weather is very hot today, and they say, "No, it isn't. Yesterday was really hot." They negate what I say, right? No matter what you say to them, they always negate it. Aren't there people like this around? I say, "The food today is salty. Is there too much salt in it or too much soy sauce?" And they say, "Neither. There's too much sugar in it." No matter what I say, they negate it. So I don't say anything else. We don't see eye to eye, and we're talking different languages. Then there are some who, when they hear me talking about faith in God, say, "You're an expert at talking about this, so I'll listen." If I talk a little about anything external, they don't want to listen anymore, as though I don't know anything about external things. It's fine that they pay no attention to me. I want to be quiet. I don't need anyone to pay attention to me. I just do what I ought to do. I have my responsibilities, and I have my way of life. Tell me, what do these attitudes people have demonstrate? They see that I don't look like a great or capable person, and that I speak and act like an ordinary person. And so they think, "How come you're not like God?" Look at me. If I was God, I'd be most like him. It is not a matter of being like or not like God. It's you who demands that I be like God. I've never said I was like him, and I never wanted to be like him. I just do what I ought to do. If I go somewhere and some people don't recognize me, then that's great, as it saves me trouble. You see, the Lord Jesus spoke and worked in Judea so much back then, and no matter what corrupt dispositions the disciples who followed him had, their attitude toward him was as man's attitude toward God. Theirs was a normal relationship. Yet there were some who said of the Lord Jesus, "Isn't he a carpenter's son?" And even some who followed him for a long time continually harbored this attitude. This is something which God incarnate often faces in becoming an ordinary, normal human being, and it is a common occurrence. Some people are so enthusiastic when they first meet me, and when I leave, they lie prostrate and weep. But this doesn't work out during real interaction, and a lot of the time I have to endure it. Why do I have to endure it? Because some people are foolish, some cannot be cultured, some people are needed as service doers, and some are deaf to all reason. That's why I have to endure sometimes, and sometimes there are certain people I cannot allow to get close to me. These people are too repugnant, and they have an antagonistic disposition. How antagonistic? For example, I see a little dog who looks so lovely, and I say, let's call it Hua Mao. And what attitude do most people have toward this name? It's just a name, and seeing as I came up with it first, that is what the dog shall be called. It's just a very normal matter. Certain people with an antagonistic disposition won't call it that name, and they say, what kind of name is Hua Mao? I've never heard of a dog being called Hua Mao before. Let's not call it that. We should give it an English name. I say, I'm not very good at coming up with English names, so you just call it what you want, and I'll yield to your decision. Why do I yield to their decision? This is a minor matter, so why argue about it? Some people don't yield and must instead argue about such things. Just because I yield, that doesn't mean I believe I've done wrong. It is just the principle by which I conduct myself and act. Just because I don't argue with you, that doesn't mean I'm afraid of you. I don't argue, but I know in my heart that you're a disbeliever. And I would rather have dealings with a dog than with the likes of you. Apart from the few people I must interact with within the scope of my living circle, the people I will have dealings with are brothers and sisters, the people of God's house. This is my principle. I do not interact with even a single non-believer. I don't need to do this. However, if there are disbelievers in God's house who are friendly to God's house, then they can be friends of the church. Whether they help the church or exert some effort and handle some matters for the church can accommodate them. But I won't have dealings with them like I do with brothers and sisters. I'm very busy with my work, and I don't have the time to deal with such matters. Some people who've believed in God for several years should have some concept of God's work, God incarnate, and God saving people, yet they have no God-fearing heart at all. They're just the same as non-believers and have not changed at all. Tell me, what things are these people? They are natural-born devils, the enemies of God. When one's association with satanic, devilish people deepens, it all becomes a calamity and a disaster. You can all appreciate from your daily lives that no matter what group of people you join, there will always be someone who doesn't like you. And even without provoking or displeasing them, they'll say bad things about you, judge you, and slander you. You have no idea what's happened, yet they dislike you. They don't get on well with you and want to bully you. What's the situation here? You have no idea what you've done to displease them, but for some unknown reason, you get bullied by them. Are there evil people like this? They are your adversaries and can only be explained as such. Before you've even interacted with them, they take an instant dislike to you and think about how they can harm you. Are they not your bitter adversaries? Can you get along well with a bitter adversary? Can you walk the same path? Certainly not. So would you clash and argue with such people?
No, I wouldn't argue with them.
Why not? Because they are deaf to all reason. Some people are inherently averse to and repulsed by positive things, right things, things that are comparatively good among mankind. That is, positive things that people rather yearn for and like. One clear disposition people like this possess is that of wickedness. They are wicked people. For instance, a man goes looking for a girlfriend and thinks, whether she's ugly or pretty, as long as she is virtuous and good, and can get along in life, then that's enough. Especially in terms of a woman with humanity and faith. No matter whether I'm rich or poor, ugly or handsome, or I get sick, she will be totally committed to being with me. Decent people usually hold this view. What kind of people don't like or approve of this kind of view?
Wicked people.
Then tell me, what view do wicked people hold? How do they react when they hear these words? They sneer at you, saying, "Idiot, what era are we in? And you're looking for someone like that? You should look for a rich and beautiful woman." Ordinary men marry decent and virtuous women, and they live fit and proper lives together with a unified and happy family. They conduct themselves cleanly in life. Do wicked people think this way? They say, in this world now, can a man still be called a man if he hasn't had 10 or so girlfriends and several wives? If he hasn't, then that's a wasted life. They all hold this view. You say to them, find a decent, virtuous, and good woman, especially one with humanity and faith. But is this acceptable to them? They sneer at you and say, "You're so stupid. No one bothers about others' matters in the world now. Everyone lives liberated and free. Especially when you leave China and go to the West. It's even freer with no one breathing down your neck. Why are you being so hard on yourself? You're so silly." This is the view they hold. So, how do they feel when you talk to them about positive things? About the most wonderful positive things of man that pertain to the truth and to justice? They feel repulsion and they curse you in their hearts. Once they know you to be this kind of person, their hearts will become guarded against you, and they will avoid you. People who are not the same type of person don't follow the same path. They know you feel repulsion toward people like them, and they look down on people like you in their hearts. They don't want to talk to you about how much they dress themselves up and fool around with other people. They're afraid that you'll fellowship on the truth with them and try to get them to follow the right path, and they feel totally repulsed. In other words, in their innermost hearts, they look down on all positive things. Therefore, if you encounter such people when you're preaching the gospel, then you cannot preach it to them. Even if you do, and they come to believe, they're still antichrists and cannot be saved. Why can you people sit here and listen to my sermon? Isn't it because you have some bit of a truth-loving heart? As long as you have the Holy Spirit working on you while I'm speaking to you, you will feel moved and encouraged in your hearts, and you will wish to dedicate yourselves, suffer, and expend yourselves in the pursuit of justice, truth, and salvation. The moment those wicked ones hear someone talk about expending oneself for justice, for truth, and for God. They feel these words are empty, that they are slogans, that they are beyond comprehension, and they discriminate against such people. Therefore, when you come across these wicked people, don't fellowship on anything with them. You are not the same kind of people as them, so just keep your distance. When I come across such people and see that they have this attitude toward me and speak in this tone of voice, should I then prune them and lecture them? It's not necessary. There's no need to take notice of them, no need to respond to them. Can you change them by responding to them? You can't change them. Just set them to one side and leave it at that. People like this won't last long in their belief in God. 1. They don't love the truth. 2. They're repulsed by positive things. 3. They discriminate against God. They hold God's disposition and everything lovable about God in the lowest regard and most contempt. These things determine that they will never be saved by God. No matter where such people are, whether they're guileless or treacherous, their having these manifestations determines that there is definitely some wickedness in their dispositions. Wherever an Antichrist holds sway, the church life and the effects achieved by God's chosen people performing their duties will not be good, and the work of God's house will be obstructed. So if Antichrists are not sorted out and expelled, the work of the church will suffer great loss, and many of God's chosen people will be harmed. False leaders primarily cannot perform real work, and when they handle some general affairs, they make slow progress and are ineffectual. Furthermore, they don't know how to cultivate and use good people of good caliber who pursue the truth. And what about antichrists? When an antichrist holds sway, they do things only for the sake of their own fame, gain, and status. They do no real work at all, and they directly disrupt and disturb church work. Antichrists specifically engage in destruction and are no different from Satan at all. If an antichrist sees some people who love and pursue the truth, they feel uncomfortable. Where does this discomfort come from? It comes from their wicked disposition. That is, within their nature, there is a wicked disposition which hates justice, hates positive things, hates the truth, and opposes God. That's why, when they see someone pursuing the truth, they say, "You're not very educated and you're not much to look at, but you still really pursue the truth." What attitude does this show? This is contempt. For instance, some brothers and sisters have some gift or special skill and want to perform a related duty. In fact, this is suitable in terms of their various conditions. But how do antichrists treat such brothers and sisters? In their hearts, they think, if you want to perform this duty, you first have to cozy up to me and be part of my gang. And only then will I permit you to perform this duty. Otherwise, dream on. Isn't this how antichrists act? Why are antichrists so repulsed by those who sincerely believe in God, who have some sense of justice and some humanity, and who make some effort to pursue the truth? Why are they always at odds with such people? When they see people pursuing the truth and behaving well, people who are never negative and who have kind intentions, they feel uncomfortable. When Antichrists see people acting impartially, people who can perform their duty according to principles, who can put the truth into practice once they understand it, they get really angry. They rack their brains trying to think of a way to torment those people, and they try to make things difficult for them. If someone sees through to an Antichrist's nature essence, sees through to the Antichrist's insidiousness and wickedness, and wishes to expose and report them, what will the Antichrist do? The Antichrist will think of every way they can to remove this needle in their eye and thorn in their flesh, and will incite brothers and sisters to reject this person. An ordinary brother or sister has no prestige and no status in the church. They have only some discernment of this Antichrist and pose no threat to this Antichrist. Why then does the Antichrist always dislike them and treat this person as if they were a needle in their eye and a thorn in their flesh? How is this person in the Antichrist's way? Why can't the Antichrist accommodate such people? It's because within the Antichrist there is a wicked disposition. They cannot tolerate people pursuing the truth or following the right path. They set themselves against whoever wants to follow the right path and intentionally make things difficult for you. And they will rack their brains trying to think of a way to get rid of you. Or else, they'll oppress you so that you become negative and weak. Or they'll find leverage on you and spread it around so that others reject you. And then they're happy. If you don't listen to them or follow what they say, and you continue to pursue the truth, follow the right path, and be a good person, they feel uneasy in their heart, and they feel upset and uncomfortable seeing you performing your duty. What's this about? Have you displeased them? No, you haven't. Why do they treat you like that when you haven't done anything to them or harmed their interests in any way? This shows only that the nature of this kind of thing, Antichrists, is wicked, and that they are inherently opposed to justice, positive things, and truth. If you ask them exactly what's going on, they don't even know. They just intentionally make things difficult for you. If you say to do things one way, they must do it another way. If you say so-and-so isn't up to much, they say that person is great. If you say this is a great way to spread the gospel, they say it's bad. If you say a sister who has only believed in God for a year or two has become negative and weak and should be supported, they say, "No need, she's stronger than you are." In short, they're always at odds with you and deliberately act contrary to you. What is their principle for being at odds with you? It is that anything you say is right, they say is wrong, and whatever you say is wrong, they say is right. Are there any truth principles in their actions? None whatsoever. They just want you to make a fool of yourself, to show you up, to break you down, to beat you down so that you can't hold your head up. You don't pursue the truth anymore. You become weak, and you no longer believe. And then their goal is achieved, and they feel joy in their heart. What's going on here? This is the wicked essence of the kind of people who are antichrists. if they see brothers and sisters praising God and bearing testimony to God and not paying them any attention, are they happy? No, they're not. How do they feel? They feel jealous. Ordinarily, when people hear someone praising someone else, their normal reaction is, "I'm pretty great too. Why not praise me as well?" They have this little idea, but when they hear someone testifying for God, they think, they have such experience and bear such testimony, and everyone approves of them. They have this understanding. Why don't I have this understanding? They envy and admire this person. Antichrists bear a certain characteristic. When they hear someone testifying for God, saying, "This is God's doing. This is God's discipline. These are God's deeds, God's arrangements, and I'm willing to submit." Antichrists feel unhappy and think, "You say everything is God's doing. Have you seen how God rules over anything? Have you felt how God arranges anything? How come I know nothing of it?" One aspect is that they're just like Satan in the way it treated God's approval of Job. Antichrists have the same mentality as Satan when God gains a person. They have the disposition of Satan. Another aspect is that if someone understands the truth and has discernment of antichrists, and they don't follow the antichrists, but instead reject them, then the antichrists have a frenzied mentality and think, "I cannot gain this person at all, so I'll annihilate them." Therefore, when Job encountered trials, God said to Satan, "He is in your hand, but save his life." If God hadn't said this, would Satan have shown mercy?
No.
This is for certain. It would absolutely not have shown mercy. What attitude do antichrists hold toward brothers and sisters who pursue and love the truth? Toward people who have some faith and who perform their duty with some loyalty? And what attitude do they hold toward certain people who talk about life experiences to testify for God, and who often fellowship on the truth with brothers and sisters?
They feel jealousy and hatred.
What does their attitude depend on? It depends on their wicked disposition. Therefore, when you often see them inexplicably oppressing someone, hating someone, and making certain people suffer, you then know that no one can change the wicked disposition of an antichrist, and that it is deeply rooted and innate. From this point, it can be seen that these people who are antichrists cannot possibly attain salvation. They don't allow brothers and sisters to bear testimony for God. So can they bear testimony for God themselves? They hate it when other people bear testimony for God so much that they grind their teeth. So tell me, can they bear testimony for God? They are absolutely incapable of bearing testimony for God. Some people say, "That's not right. Some antichrists bear very good testimony for God, and brothers and sisters weep when they hear it." What kind of testimony is this? You have to listen to this kind of testimony to determine whether it is true testimony or not. Say there is someone who has a good job and a good family, and being moved by God, they give up their good job and family and put their body and mind into expending themselves for God. Even though they feel sorrowful in their heart, they nevertheless give it all up. Brothers and sisters say to them, "Aren't you feeling even a little weak?" They reply, "Yes, a little. But for me to be able to give up my family and my job, isn't that all God's doing? I used to earn 2,000 or 3,000 a day and tens of thousands a month, and I owned many assets. After I came to believe in God, in order to perform my duty, I handed my assets over to someone else to look after." The others ask, "Haven't you managed your assets at all after handing them over to someone else? Do you now own no part of them anymore? How did you let your assets go?" They reply, "It was God's doing." Isn't this too ambiguous? They're just empty words. Moreover, isn't them saying how high their earnings were just them boasting? Why do they say this? They're bearing testimony to how much they've given up. Are they bearing testimony for God? They're bearing testimony to their little bit of glorious history, to the price they've paid and what they've expended in the past, to how much they've dedicated, and to them having no complaints about God. Is there any part of this that bears testimony for God? You have not seen what God has done in all these things, have you? It is not true that they bear testimony for God. Clearly, they are bearing testimony for themselves, yet they say they're bearing testimony for God. Isn't this deceiving? They pretend to be bearing testimony for God in order to bear testimony for themselves. Isn't this hypocrisy? So why then do some people feel very moved and cry continually when they hear it? There are all kinds of fools around. When anyone mentions bearing testimony for God, Antichrists then have to talk about some little things they've done, the little things they've dedicated, and the little time they've spent expending themselves. And as time goes on, people stop paying attention, and so they come up with new things to say, and in this way, they bear testimony for themselves. If anyone is better than them and can fellowship better than them, bringing forth some light of the truth, they feel uncomfortable. Do they feel uncomfortable because their efforts with the truth are inferior to others, and they are eager to excel? No, they won't permit anyone to be better than them. They can't stand others being better than them, and they're only happy when they're better than others. Isn't this wicked? If someone else is better than you and understands the truth more than you do, then you should learn from them. Isn't this a good thing? This is something everyone should rejoice about. For example, there was Job, that man among the followers of God in human history. Was this a glorious thing that happened in God's 6,000-year management work? Or was it a disgraceful thing? It was a glorious thing. What attitude should you adopt toward this matter? What perspective should you have? You should be happy for God and celebrate Him. Praise God's might. Praise that God has gained glory. This was a good thing. It was such a good thing, and yet some people even feel repulsed by it and detest it. Isn't this them being wicked? To be frank, it is them being wicked. And this is brought about by their wicked disposition.